Week 2 on paper looked like it was going to be pretty lackluster, but then it turned into absolute chaos with upsets left and right, crazy close games left and right. Luckily for us now heading into Week 3, it's not lackluster. We've got 3 awesome top 25 matchups. We're going to predict each of those games in deeper detail over the next couple days. Individual videos on the 3 ranked versus ranked matchups. And then we've got 5 other games that we're really keeping our eye on as we head into Week 3 of the college football season. Games that I expect to be relatively close. Games that I think could turn into an upset or two. Games that are going to have an impact on the rest of the entire season. These are just 5 of them. There are countless others that I'm sure will catch our eye by the end of Saturday night. But let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll start in the ACC. Number 12, Clemson at Georgia Tech. Again, kicking off our Week 3 predictions, the 5 most underrated games heading into the weekend. This was, to me, back in the preseason, back in June, July, August. These were games, this was a game, I should say, Clemson and Georgia Tech, that I already thought was a trap game, right? That was one that we kind of had circled on the calendar. It was like, that Clemson needs to watch out because Brent Key, notorious for pulling off some massive upsets, really thriving as an underdog. We've seen it time and time again during his time with the Yellow Jackets. I'm actually surprised Georgia Tech isn't a top 25 team at this point. I'm really, really impressed with them. They are a top 25 team in RGE top 25. So again, I thought this was a trap game already. I think it even is more so of one now after what we've seen out of Clemson the first 2 weeks. The Tigers get beat at home against LSU. That's not horrendous. The offense didn't look good, but LSU's a dang good football team. And then they found themselves down 16-0 against Troy. 16-0 against Troy. That was a game that I thought Clemson would come out firing on all cylinders, ready to bounce back, especially offensively after a poor showing at home against LSU. And they had to battle hard to come back against the Trojans and only won 27-16 as a 32-point favorite. You look at Georgia Tech, they've already won at Colorado. They destroyed Gardner-Webb last week without Haynes King, and that is the million-dollar question heading into this game. We expect Haynes King to play in this game for Georgia Tech. The season will go, as we know, as he goes. But will Haynes King be fully healthy? Can he? He's got some leg injuries, got some shoulder injuries. Will he be able to go? We expect he will be. And if he does, can he go a full 60 minutes? And if he does, will he be 100%? That's the key for Georgia Tech. So that's the storyline we're watching out for. Additionally, Clemson's defense, can they stop the run? They only allowed 108 rushing yards to LSU, only 78 rushing yards to Troy. We know Georgia Tech wants to run the football, even though they did air it out very well against Gardner-Webb last week. I look at this game, I think last week was the wake-up call for Clemson. You thought it might have been they lost at home to LSU. I think Troy was. It was a sluggish game. I think one where Clemson came out, overlooked the Trojans. They punched them in the mouth early. They kind of woke up a little bit. I don't think they sleepwalk through this game now against Georgia Tech. It will be close. Would not be shocked in the slightest to see the Yellow Jackets win this game, but I am going to side with the Tigers, who I do think still have the better offense when they play at their full potential. I think we see that now in Week 3. The defensive line, I still think is one of the best in the nation. If they bottle up the Georgia Tech run game, they should be able to win this game by forcing Haynes King to win it through the air. Can he do it? Yes. Will he? I don't think so. The Tigers win a very, very close game against Georgia Tech in a game that I've had circled as a trap game for many, many months. Wisconsin at number 19, Alabama. This is a big test for the Crimson Tide, right? A Power 4 test for Alabama, 2 weeks removed from their massive upset loss on the road at Florida State. Last year, these two teams met. Alabama won 42-10 in Madison. Absolutely destroyed the Badgers. Last week, they bounced back from their loss against Florida State. They beat ULM 73-0, but of course, that doesn't tell us too much. Wisconsin, meanwhile, comes into this game after a 42-10 win over Middle Tennessee State without their starting quarterback in Billy Edwards. Danny O'Neal started that game. It was phenomenal. 23 for 27, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns. So to me, Wisconsin's set either way, right? I know they want to go with Billy Edwards. He was a starter in Week 1. They expect him to be ready to go now for Alabama. They knew they could beat Middle Tennessee without him. But if they have to go with Danny O'Neal or if something happens and they decide to go with O'Neal, I think they appear to be more than capable. The problem with Wisconsin is, despite what we've seen from them for over the last decade or so, they have not been able to run the ball extremely well in their first 2 games against Miami, Ohio, and Middle Tennessee. Against Miami, Ohio, they averaged just 3.8 yards per carry. Against Middle Tennessee, 6 yards per carry is good, but they were only leading the Blue Raiders 14-10 in the third quarter, and at one point only had 4 rushing yards on 15 attempts before rushing for 149 on their final 16 attempts. So they kind of burst onto the scene later, but were struggling mightily. I think they struggle mightily now in Tuscaloosa against the Crimson Tide. This Alabama team is still very, very talented. They might not be playoff caliber. They might not be SEC title caliber. We'll have to wait and find out if that's the case. But they should beat Wisconsin by double digits. I, once again, do not think the Badgers have the offensive capability to keep up with Alabama in this game. Alabama has too good of a defense. They absolutely own the offensive edge. They have the home field advantage edge. They should win this game in a big, big way. If they don't, there will be more concerns coming out of Tuscaloosa. Even if Alabama only wins this game by 3 or 7, maybe even 10, that would be very concerning. They need a dominant victory over Wisconsin, and I think they will get it. Pittsburgh at West Virginia. Look, it doesn't involve a ranked team. This game will have no implications on a conference title race. It will have no implications on the playoff race, but it's the backyard brawl. This is a fantastic rivalry that I think always needs to be discussed every single year, regardless of how good or bad these teams are. You look at this game, Pittsburgh has lost the last 3 games in Morgantown. They've lost 3 straight meetings at West Virginia. They had that miraculous comeback win last year at Pittsburgh. What was it, 38-34? They're hoping to maybe not have the game be as close this year against a West Virginia team that's coming off a rough loss on the road to Ohio. Rich Rodriguez's return to Morgantown hasn't been great. They dominated in week 1, but then lost 17-10 at Ohio. The defense forced 3 turnovers, couldn't do anything with that offensively. The defense gave up 429 yards of offense. The West Virginia offense only mustered 250 yards of offense, only 72 rushing yards against that Ohio front 7. And West Virginia, they just got destroyed in the time of possession, held the ball for just 16 minutes and 40 seconds. Ohio had the ball for over 40 minutes of that game. Not good. Not good at all for West Virginia. They're now going up against a Pittsburgh team that's extremely experienced, very senior-led, right? 16 starters back for the Panthers, including their star quarterback Eli Holstein. So this is a Pittsburgh team that I think is better offensively than West Virginia. I think they're better defensively than West Virginia, and I think they finally overcome the struggles in Morgantown. They've lost 3 straight there. That streak comes to an end. Pittsburgh owns the edge in every aspect of this game except home field advantage, and I have not been impressed with West Virginia in their first 2 weeks. They cannot run the ball very well. Pittsburgh front 7 is really, really good. They're going to shut that down. West Virginia, not really great quarterback play. Don't expect them to be able to win this game through the air. Give me the Panthers to remain undefeated, and they finally get a win on the road at West Virginia. Florida at number 3, LSU. Last week, I would have thought this was a top 25 matchup. I think they all did, right? This was supposed to get its own individual video. Then Florida went on to lose against USF in the Swamp. And I don't want to say I told you so. Look, I didn't pick USF to win that game, right? But I've said all along that I didn't think Florida was as good as people thought they were going to be, and that was clearly shown against USF, where DJ Lagway has shown he is not as good as people thought he was going to be, or want him to be. Florida just simply is not that good. And you look at this game now, you can say, well, LSU's not that good. Well, they did beat Clemson on the road, and yes, they only beat Louisiana Tech, 23-7? That was a classic LSU sleepwalk game. Massive win at home. They knew they could start their third stringers and beat Louisiana Tech, and they did, right? The defense for LSU still extremely elite. I'm not sold on the Florida offense. I'm not sold on DJ Lagway. 342 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick in 2 games this year, but really struggled mightily to move the ball against USF just last week. The Florida defense allowed 263 passing yards to the Bulls last week. LSU is led by one of the best quarterbacks in the nation in Garrett Nussmeier, who's already thrown for nearly 500 yards in 2 weeks so far this season. Factor in the fact that in Death Valley, LSU has scored at least 42 points against Florida in the last 3 meetings. The last 3 meetings against Florida in Death Valley, LSU has scored at least 42 points. They have not lost to Florida in Baton Rouge in Death Valley since 2016. Also factor in the revenge aspect. LSU did lose to Florida 27-16 last year. LSU wins this game. They win it in dominant fashion. At least 10 points for LSU, if not more. In Florida, continuing to spiral. That loss to USF really, really bad, and the schedule going to get significantly tougher from here on out. You got LSU, you've got Miami, you've got Texas, you got Georgia, you got Florida State. I mean, it's a brutal stretch the rest of the way for Florida, and this is going to kind of show what they're going up against every single week from here on out. LSU, again, by double digits. Sticking in the SEC, our final game up here, Vanderbilt at number 11, South Carolina. Here's what I really like about this game, or what I find intriguing about this game, is the fact that if Vanderbilt can win this game in Columbia, there's a very good chance the Commodores are 5-0 heading into Alabama. And let's just think about that storyline. A potential top 25 matchup between Vanderbilt and Alabama, maybe a scenario where Vanderbilt's higher ranked than Alabama. The Commodores are undefeated, maybe dreaming of a playoff berth, dreaming of an SEC title berth, but to get to that point, to have that hype, they've got to beat South Carolina. These two teams share a common opponent. Vanderbilt last week went on the road to Blacksburg and destroyed Virginia Tech 44-20. Talk about a big win for the Commodores. They put off the upset last year in Nashville and then dominated the Hokies at night at Lane Stadium That's really, really hard to do. Beat them by 24. South Carolina only beat Virginia Tech 24-11 on a neutral site. Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt has been phenomenal. 468 yards, 5 touchdowns, just 1 pick. Also has over 100 rushing yards on the year. Only 11 incompletions in 2 games. The defense did their job extremely well against Virginia Tech. Held the Hokies to 248 yards. South Carolina gave up 336 yards to the Hokies. Lenore Sellers and the South Carolina offense have not been as good as we expected, right? Sellers has done fine, 337 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year. But it's really been the explosive plays, and more specifically the defense and the special teams that's been so good for South Carolina, right? They had a massive punt return that kind of broke the game open against Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago. And then last week against South Carolina State, 21 of their 38 points last week came from 2 punt returns and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. They won by 28. So let's think about that. If those things don't happen, South Carolina only beat South Carolina State by 7, right? And I mean, give credit to the defense, give credit to the special teams. But the offense was outgained last week, only mustered 253 yards against South Carolina State. And again, there was a massive weather delay. It was wet. I get it. But regardless, the offense has not been as great as people thought it would be. But Columbia, South Carolina is a very difficult place to play. Williams-Brice Stadium is a very difficult place to play. And last year, I made the mistake in picking Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was hot. They were looking good. They were hosting South Carolina. I felt good about picking the Commodores in that game. And South Carolina dominated them 28-7 in Nashville. They've won 16 straight over Vanderbilt. I cannot go against history. I cannot get burned 2 years in a row. I'm going to pick South Carolina here. I think the offense finally comes to life a little bit. I think the Vanderbilt defense struggles a little bit to contain Lenore Sellers like they did last year. Give me South Carolina to win this game at home, but significantly closer than it was last year. Vanderbilt, a dang good football team. Clark Lee doing a phenomenal job with this program. South Carolina proves just to be a little bit too much. So Vandy loses, more than likely going to be 4-1, hopefully heading into Alabama. Still newsworthy, but not that big 5-0 number that many are hoping for. So guys, there you have it. 5 underrated games heading into the weekend. Watch out for that Clemson-Georgia Tech game. That is the one that probably has the potential for the biggest upset, but so could Vanderbilt-South Carolina. Out of all these games here, I would say the Clemson-Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt-South Carolina games are the ones that could result in massive upsets, but I just can't pick myself to do it just yet. Sticking with our preseason predictions, because I did pick Carolina and Clemson back in the summer. Regardless, all these games should be fantastic. The 3 top 25 matchups coming your way this week should be fantastic. Again, as we've learned in the world of college football, there is never such a thing as a lackluster week. There is never such a thing as a calm or, unentertaining week. That doesn't happen. Always expect the unexpected. Assume absolutely nothing in the world of college football, and you will be just fine. Week 3 is officially upon us, and we'll be here with you every step of the way. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes these expert picks over here. We're fresh off a big 60% week. Hit 60% of our bets both in college football and in NFL. Have a winning record so far this year. Going to have a winning record by season's end. So do take advantage of that. Go check it out. Link down in the description below, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up, win big with us today. Become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.